Morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, and welcome to this edition of the Tuesday Telecast. We are going to bring into the house some people who've been on the telecast before. This is another roundtable, and we're talking about human connection, where it hasn't been and how we get there, what it is. I have no idea what direction this conversation will go in. This is what I do here on these roundtables, is to actually connect with humans. We're going to talk about that human connection right now. So without further ado, I'm going to see if we have our guests and bring them into the house. Hello,
Has it
and
started
welcome
now?
to the Joyful Path and the Tuesday Telecast, where we have a roundtable full of experts and misfits, however you want to be part of that, and members of the human race. We're talking about human connection, what it means to us, how we do it, if it's real, if it's Memorex. And I'm going to start by asking each person here, in case you haven't been on the show before, who you are, and just put this into a snippet of about 1 minute. I am going to start with Kim Martin Raymond.
Yes, hello everyone. Peace and blessings. My name is Kim Martin Raymond. I am a minister, spiritual life coach, author, holistic nutritionist, and founder of Redefining You LLC. I help my clients to realign themselves, mind, body, and spirit. And I am also the host of the How Now podcast, where we talk about how to live in the now. Glad to be here.
Oh, thank you, Kim. We have a few podcast hosts here. Next, I would like to ask Allison to step up to the plate.
Hi, I'm Allison Jeffries. I am a best-selling author, and I am a life recreation coach and self-dubbed wise woman. And what I do is I help women through the process of going past the judgment, the blame, and the persecution that we give ourselves as we go through life, to learn to live as their authentic selves and enjoy life, be happy, and just experience all the blessings that we were intended to have.
Beautiful. Next, let's have Anshar Seraphim introduce himself.
Hello, everyone. I'm Anshar Seraphim. I am a communication coach and instructor. I teach communication, psychosocial dynamics. I design systems that rely on concepts from applied behavioral psychology and cognitive neuroscience. I got into those subjects as a result of escaping the isolation chamber of my own neurodivergence. I was 75% nonverbal at age 11 with autism. And I learned all of those skills because I had a desperate need to connect to others and not just live a life alone. And so it took me 20 years of hard work, and I'm still working hard at it. But the process of breaking down that process for myself has made it really easy to relate that to others. And so I help C-suites, entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, really people from all kinds of different walks of life learn how to express themselves, reach the people that they want to reach, and understand the psychological dynamics that are at play and what they do.
Beautiful. Thank you. And next, Matt, founder. Matt Allen, could you please let us know?
Matt found. Oh, it's me.
Yes, it's you.
You're the second person who's done that this week. They seem to think that my surname is Founder. I need to think about that and maybe put some commas in, but that's going to cause another problem with somebody. So my name is Matt Allen. I am founder of Kudos and Democrat, social benefit network creator. And I am here because I like to find people and talk to them. Sometimes, not always. As the therapy session started.
Beautiful. Thank you. And last but not least, at least before me, but I hope my audience knows me by now, I would like to bring Perry Noppert into the house and introduce him by having him introduce himself. Woohoo!
Woohoo! Well, Perry Knoppert, in Dutch, Knoppert, and my nickname is Dr. Octopus because I'm the founder of the Octopus Movement. It's a global movement of nonlinear thinkers in the human mycelium solving the unsolvable for a sustainable future using nonlinear thinking. And I know everything there is to know about nonlinear thinking. Um, I love that. I use that a lot. I constantly talk about linear, non-linearity. So today I will do the same thing. And very proud of my documentary coming out about my life as a nonlinear thinker with the title The Beauty Between Thoughts. And that's where I entered the life of nonlinear thinking. It's between these thoughts, there is empty space, and I see that as nonlinear thinking. Thank you, Lydia.
And thank you, Perry. And I am your host, Lydia Laurie Bustler. And I live between the thoughts. I live as part of the energy. I remove barriers to energy flow and to people's best selves. I am a synesthetic hyper creative, and I am a diplomat. I communicate with music, most of all, and I communicate with energy. Right now, this is an energetic room of 6 of us who are going to talk about human connection. So the thing that I see as connecting everybody who has been on my channel here and has jumped on this call is that we've each changed something dramatically in our lives to connect with the rest of the world. And some of it, the world that is struggling, the world that has barriers. And this is something that I obviously am very interested in. So with that said, I want to open up the floor and say, what barriers have you seen that that you've just wanted to tear down, and how have you done that? This is going to be very obvious to some. Anshar.
So one of the most interesting things that you learn when you start to study psychology and cognitive neuroscience is you start to learn the importance of peer groups. And peer groups are really relevant because the the way that the brain treats different social groups of people is based on proximity. It's what allows us to care about what's going on with the people that we connect with. And you see the effects all the time. I think one of the most common examples that I like to give is if you have a bunch of like guy friends, let's say in a circle, and they're all talking and laughing, and something happens to one of them. You kick one of them in the shin or between the legs or something like that. You'll actually see a physical reaction in all of the people that are there. And that's a result of building rapport and moving into one another's peer groups. Peer groups give us the ability to actually neurophysiologically experience the feeling, sensations, and emotions of the people that are close to us. And this is a really important principle in a world like the one that we have, where we're starting to close all of these barriers in a digital world. But there is an element of human intimacy that can be missing. And I think one of the most clear demonstrations of that was during like the September 11th attacks. You know, we lost like 6,000 plus people. It was on every news channel. But at the same time, in that same time period, we lost 6 figures of people to the things going on with Boko Haram. But it wasn't on any of the news stations here in the States. And that's because the brain is only able to care about the extension of beingness to the people that we can relate to most. And the more that people are like us, the more that it triggers those kinds of reactions. And that's why you'll see when people travel to different countries and they expose themselves to different circles of people, that circle continues to widen. And often, you know, you'll see celebrities, they'll travel to different countries and then they end up coming back wanting to be humanitarian ambassadors. And
Mhm.
it's because actually seeing and interacting with people, that circle widens to include them. So one of the most important things about human connection is understanding that not only do you have the ability to affect the neurochemistry of others and to change their psychology, but it also gives credence to the importance that the people that you surround yourself with have on you and your neurophysiology, the way that your dopamine-led processes interact, the way that you process your own limbic emotions, sometimes even the way that we can perceive things with like the somatosensory cortex. All of those things are influenced by the people that are closest to us. And that's why human connection is one of the most important things. It was one of the reasons that as a neurodivergent person who didn't have any friends until I was 25 years old, that I wanted to escape that basement feeling of being disconnected from everyone, because I was hungry for that connection and I didn't know what it felt like. There was a long period of my life where I thought that I would only be able to fantasize about what it would be like to have a friend or to have a girlfriend or to go to a picnic with friends. And I would watch other people with envy. And in making psychology and neuroscience into an autistic special interest, I started to climb that ladder and I learned so many things about myself just through the process of failure. And I think the thing that is most striking to me is that despite the fact that we can all often nod and acknowledge what kind of effect the people that are around us have on us, sometimes we don't take quite as much agency in recognizing that people can have a deleterious effect on our journey too. And I think that just like investing in the right things, investing your time in the right things, investing in the right people is really crucial. And learning what that means for you, learning to map out your needs as a person, learning to map out your direction, surrounding your people who don't just tell you that you can't do things and people who try to
Mhm.
enable your success, but you have to surround yourself with people who are different versions of the kind of person that you want to become. And that means challenging yourself, because the human default is to surround ourselves with people who just make us comfortable being ourselves, that
Absolutely.
we're able to sit on our laurels and just be content with being. And all you really have to do to see that effect is be that one person who doesn't engage in drinking at a party. The second that there's someone else who's challenging in that atmosphere, it starts to spoil everyone's good time, because people don't like to be challenged. They don't like to have to question their decisions. But one of the things that you get with existential authenticity, when you have to overcome challenges, when you're willing to fail, when you intentionally put yourself into challenging situations, is that you want to fight for that existential authenticity. You want to be more than just the sum of your reactions. And that's why self awareness, I think, is one of the most important things to seek out in human connection, because there are so many things you can and cannot convince a person of. But I think it was Jonathan Swift who said that you can't reason a person out of an opinion that they didn't use reason to get to in the first place. If a person is not taking that agency over their own decisions and overcoming challenges, and that's why I think people who have gone through hard things in their lives, you can see that change in them, that they take ownership over who they are and they decide how to react instead of just reacting. So one of the things that I teach, and this is something that's been in the business world for a long time, and I think this is a missing element, something very simple that everyone can do, is we're all taught from a young age this thing about the golden rule. And it's not that the golden rule is bad. Treating other people the way that you want to be treated is a great way, when you haven't met someone, when you have absolutely nothing to go off of, to try to treat another person with the consideration and respect that you want. But there is a higher goal there, the platinum rule. And that's to learn enough about the passions, dreams, desires, hopes, fears, and pain points of another person, so that you can put out the effort to treat them the way that they want to be treated, to not just take your own needs and thoughts and desires and vision and project it onto someone and then be angered when they don't react the same way that you would. And the way that you can tell that you're around people of quality is that they'll do the same for you. So for me, that was one of the very, very simple first steps that I went through. And I've noticed that there are a lot of people that it doesn't matter how old they are, who have never gone through that process of actually looking past what it is that they want and need, and putting that on other people, and then being so confused when they don't want and need the same things. And I think you learn so much about a person by finding out what's important to them and then trying to give it to them. And you'll see that reciprocity in the people that are worth it. That's my opinion.
Consequences to anything that we do end up coming around. Like, I want to bring us back afterwards to your idea of of our peer groups and what we see on social media, on the news, what we've really been seeing for years. It's not all social media, even though we blame it on that, and how we create those checks and balances within ourselves with the social media. But first, I want to see if anyone else wants to jump in.
There is one other thing I wanted to share, and I don't know how long I get to stay here with you today. So the other thing I would want to say is that one of the most striking things I learned when I started to study the human brain is that, and psychologists disagree, but it's anywhere from 5 to 50 times as much our negative experiences when we get that rush of cortisol, when we get that rush of adrenaline, it kicks the hippocampus into overdrive because from an evolutionary standpoint, the brain wants to remember pain. It wants to remember suffering because it's what allows it to avoid it in the future. If you have that terrifying experience where a lion chases you up a tree, you're going to remember that. And as thinking, feeling human beings, that means that 15 years later, we're going to have one eye open thinking about that job interview that went terrible, 12 years ago. And positive experiences are lost. And one of the benefits of having a close circle of people who are invested in your success is it helps you create flashbulb memories of your achievements when you can share your goals and your vision with other people, and they can be there to celebrate that accomplishment with you and make it memorable. It helps to balance the scale, the funhouse mirror that can give us imposter syndrome because of the biological inherent effect that we have on placing so much more emphasis in our memory on negativity. And I think that's the other benefit of surrounding yourself with people. And I think people who have been exposed to like cognitive behavioral therapy have had the benefit of that experience, that you have to test your beliefs with the perspectives of other people to see if whether or not they're truth or if it's just truth from a certain point of view. And I think there's so much growth there. That growth happens through other people. And then I'll shut up after that.
Yet your statement from before, saying surrounding yourself with the right people, because definitely we used to have a different sleeping pattern long ago because of that one eye open, and because of taking care of our livestock and invading tribes. We had at least a 2-part sleeping schedule. When we're surrounded with people who are also panicking, we can actually exacerbate that feeling of panic and of needing to have that one eye open. Yet we still need this human connection. And so I'd be interested if anyone else wants to jump in on what changes are in us to be able to find the people for something greater when the brain is actually telling us that we're panicked. How do we get back to that heart part of our mind and feel what we want to feel in the way of love? Matt.
First of all, if I had livestock, I think they escaped. I wasn't paying attention. So my apologies if they've run anybody down or eaten anything that they shouldn't have. It's my bad.
That only happens at my house.
Okay, cool. That's a relief then. All good. Okay, so some people know here that I talk to a lot of people about what I do and about the world and what they do. And a bit like Anshar was saying about the platinum rule, I invariably wish to listen to them first, and then find out about them, ask them some deep and meaningful questions at least, and figure out what it is that drives them, not necessarily just a Zoom chat from LinkedIn to tell me about what their product is or how they deliver the better service than their competitors, but through understanding them and what drives them as people and what their families like and how they live and what they want to see change in the world. And then through that, I can explain to them at least some or one of the globes behind me and how that relates to the change that we all need. And then develop that into, like you said, love, to be able to share that we all need something. We all need change. We all need everything, really. In fact, I was doing this exactly with a guy this afternoon called Mihail. And we had an amazing conversation about how everything all fits together, especially when we stop and look and bring that about through love and through, like Anshar again was saying, sorry, I'm quoting Anshar a bit, but that's because he's the only one who's spoken really. It's that we all unite together through our shared differences. We are all, and I'm forever saying this as well, like we're all unique, but we are all unified. We are all part of one group of people. However, we all arrive at our individual situations through our own lenses and our own experiences. And that really is the things that we love or hate or are scared of, in terms of what Anshar was saying about our default is to run away from things. Unfortunately, I'm not quite that clever, and I tend to just keep running at things until I've face planted well and truly into the middle of them. But I suppose that's what I love about life, is smash my face against stuff. And usually it's pretty nice stuff, and quite often it ends up in kissing, but that's getting into a different Zoom chat that is possibly not this one. Anyway, yeah, that's kind of what I think.
All
You'll
right.
have to
I've got
forgive
my
me,
hand down
guys.
now.
We have an autistic kid downstairs, and he's trying to turn in some educational assignments. And I guess me using a video call is slowing things down for him and making him a little dysregulated. So I'm gonna go take care of that real quick, and then hoping you guys are still going and I can rejoin.
We'll actually let you in.
Thank you so much for
Sounds
having me. So good to be here.
Good to see you, Anja.
good. Next.
I'd like to touch in on that one because I loved what Matt was saying, and I loved everything Anshar said. But we're all disconnected. For some reason, sometime after the Industrial Revolution, families broke apart, communities broke apart. We have neighbors we've never met. When we used to have neighbors we knew intimately, all of those human relationships have one by one been stripped off. And now we're in a place where even as women, we have a role in society that's not the way we're wired, because society has changed far faster than the evolution of human mind and wiring can go. And so we've got women that don't know who they are. We've got men who don't know what a man is. We have children that don't know who they are. And I think as people, there's two ways to go through life. If there were only two emotions, love and fear, it makes life much simpler. And it's kind of a true thing, because all your negative emotions are attached to or derived from fear, and all the good ones come from love. And we go through life now as a population of people around the globe in fear, reacting out of fear. Everything is done out of fear. We're fed it through the internet, through the TV, through our relations with other people, because everyone's acting out of fear. And when we can change, and Kim and I talked about this on her beautiful podcast. I love her podcast, by the way. When we change to operating out of love for ourselves, which is the hardest part, because it's hard for a lot of people to learn that it is okay to love yourself, and love for the people around you, we can get back to those authentic relationships that we used to have. Maybe not in the way they used to be, because we were born someplace and stayed in that spot for the rest of our lives. But now that we're mobile, picking those groups of people that do serve us. And as I like to say, being around the people that bring out the best in you and not the beast. And that's where we can improve our human relations, is starting to learn who we are, what makes us happy, what we need to be happy, and what we need from the people around us, and start reconnecting with people again. Because it's
have that beast that is it, when we have that, as you call it, the beast that is present in us, and we believe that that's a useful beast, especially given, I mean, here's where I'm going to bring back that idea again of media, because you brought it up also. And when we have only the systems that are feeding us commercialism, consumerism, war, pain. We are reacting to those things. And whereas in the past, what Anshar had brought up is there was a time when we had less population, and this may seem to not be part of the conversation, but to me, it very much is, because the amount of energetic intercourse from those different people in our group, and our connection to the wonder, to the awe, to the earth, to, at that time, many gods, no gods, one God, ourselves. What connected us, we had more ability to connect with to connect with it, even when we were in fear, because we had been in a close call in a hunt, or something else was really dire and kept us in that fear place. We have so much more pushing that fear at us now. And it's harder to connect to, my audience has heard me talk about this a lot, but to awe. I believe that my one of my good things on the earth, one of my reasons for having as good of a life as I do, is that I can connect to the awe. I have a sense of awe, but when we are inundated with media that gives us something to connect to, something we can relate to, as Anshar said, some towers burning in a place where we have family, or we used to work, or whatever it is, we recognize that as something, and people in many countries could recognize that. It still puts us away from that feeling of awe, because it puts us there where we actually aren't. So that's everything that everyone is saying is tying that together. Everything that, Allison, you reminded me of the fact that in order to change that, we have to actually stumble upon something great, and luckily someone might come along and push something fantastic at us. I am connected to everyone in this call by people connecting us, by people somehow showing the rest of you to me, or people showing me to the rest of you. So that's an interesting exchange in itself, is when we're connecting, how we connect when we're inundated with all that negativity. Yeah, who would like to talk? Kim?
Yeah, well, I mean, I definitely resonate with what everyone has said so far. And one thing that comes to mind for me is, the disconnect has been also in our lack of empathy, of being able to see how others see things, and that it is real to them. We hear social media, we hear people talking about, oh, you're being extra. Oh my God, you're doing the most. We hear those terminologies, and it so discounts how someone feels about something. And in doing that, we're just saying that, what happened to you isn't real, or it's not a reality, but it is for that person who was living it. And so when we have that lack of empathy, and we don't show people that we understand that they've experienced something, it's like we're not acknowledging their truth. And we hear a lot of different therapists and other people saying, live your truth, know your truth. And some people are reserved to share it because they feel as though they're going to be shot down. They feel as though, oh, it's not going to, that's not real. That's too much. But who decides that? You know, my whole thing is that I don't see value in someone unless I acknowledge something about that person. And if they're able to share that with me, if they're able to bring that to light, the least I can do is say, okay, I understand that you've experienced this. And that brings your reality to life. It says that I'm willing to see things from your perspective, and that if at all possible, I'm willing to partner with you in being able to deal with it. Because for me, it comes to, how we respond as opposed to reacting. And we do a lot of that. We do a lot of reacting to things that are going on instead of responding out of wisdom, out of experience, out of taking time to communicate with someone so that way we can come to some sort of resolution where it's not combative, where it's more that we're embracing and that we're seeing that people have different points of view and that we can exist in this world with opposing points of view, but that, we're not discounting how someone feels about it. And once we learn a little better, or like you said, when you learn better, you do better. Once we learn something and we're open-minded, that's what's going to help to connect us when we're open to understanding the perspective of others and not just our own.
So when we have somebody who doesn't know themselves because they don't trust to say their truth, and others who do say their truth, but it might be based on other people's truths, it's hard to actually connect with all of that when they don't know who they are. And there's, especially when they or we have been told that we're too much. And this is very much the world that Perry lives in, not anymore, but everybody in Perry's community has been told that they're too much at some point. And I would love to have you, because you are a human connector, Perry, have you respond to that or say, no, I don't want to talk about that. But I really wonder what it is that has brought you to the point that says, the things that I don't say or that somebody else doesn't say because it's too much. That's where the brilliance is. That's where the connection is. Perry, can you talk about that?
Yeah. Yeah. hmm
Would you talk about that?
It's the human connection. Of course, I love that. That we have claimed the human mycelium. We have officially claimed the human mycelium. And for me, that's the human connection, where when I started, some people were saying to me, oh, you're building a community, and that didn't resonate with me at all. And it felt even wrong, that I thought, what's my problem with community, with that word? And as I told in the introduction, for me now, everything is in relationship to linear and nonlinear. And for me, language can be so linear, right? And I was thinking about that. And during this conversation, I'm constantly thinking, what are you talking about? What are you saying? What's happening? And your question, Lydia, I don't know. It's so much has changed and nothing has changed at the same time. And so the human connection that is now in my life is huge. It's connecting with, not just talking with people, but really having a conversation is not connecting for me. It's sometimes you can even connect by looking at each other, and there's just, you can feel that, right? I don't know. And it's not, there's not a solution, and it is with us. What are we seeing? What are we allowing from ourselves? What's happening? And I keep saying to people, it's your own operation system that you need to understand, because I think that's where the connection lies, is your OS. If you understand that, then every connection is possible.
Mhm.
But I
think
don't know, now it sounds like I know what I'm saying and I have no clue what I'm saying. It's this is my feeling now, that I think that is interesting to connect with others on a different level, because I'm not fighting anymore. And I used to be fighting. I used to be, trying to be someone who I'm not, or being all cool, or being all wise, or being all smart and entrepreneurial and making money. That's not who I am. And for me, the solution was becoming an artist, saying I'm an artist, because there are no rules in being an artist. I love that. Nobody fucking knows what an artist is. Nobody knows. There are no rules in being an artist. And isn't that the best life ever? That nobody knows?
Right.
I love that. And if nobody knows, then it's so easy to connect.
I love this, how this conversation, thanks to you saying the word, I don't know, and how much beauty of connection there is when we don't know.
Mhm.
Going back to what you were saying, Kim, we're too much. I don't know. I don't think I am too much. And I connect to somebody else, but who are you? I don't know.
Yeah.
But let's just listen to one another, or feel one another, work with one another, be in one another's energy. What do you dream about? That is a question that I'm really curious about from people. What do you dream about? What is your daydream, or what is your sleeping dream? What are you creating in your mind? When we listen to that,
Mhm.
we connect in a different way that has a lot more listening and connects us more to our response, and not to our reaction. And our response may be delayed. It may be really delayed, and that's okay. Because sitting in silence
You know,
is really important.
I love where we're going with this because it's out there. And that's where the sweet spot is. And I've talked before in these podcasts about life can either happen to you and you're a victim, for you and you're okay, or from you. And what I hear Perry talking about is he has stepped beyond that place where at this point life is coming from him. And it mashes right up with your awe. The ability to stand there, look up at the heavens and just have awe. To look at a flower coming up through the concrete and have awe. To see a baby or whatever it is that floats your boat, art, music, dance, whatever, is that we used to know who we were and define what we wanted because we knew what was possible.
Mhm.
And we could believe. But now we don't even know what's possible or not possible. We don't know who we are. We don't know who each other is. We get into relationships, even marriages, with people that we have no clue who they are, and we spend half our lives with them. But if we could step back from it all and, like Perry said, let it all go and get down to the basis of it, that's where the sweet spot comes in. Because then you can start being honest with yourself and honest with the people around you. And what you'll find is your life starts coming from you. And if you want to know what I want to see, I love what I do because working with women are exponential. I want to see the world come back to where people love each other. I want to see the world where you stand in the grocery store line and everybody smiles and we're not jockeying for position. We're trying to make sure the other person has what they need. And I believe that in working with women, because women are exponential, You teach them something, you tell them something, they think it's interesting, they're going to share it with 5 or 10 other women or 5 or 10 other people. And so that concept spreads and grows. And I think if each of us says, where's that place that we have the opportunity to be exponential, to lift the boat for everyone, to love and support in a different way, not because it's how we were taught or told or beat into our heads, but because it comes from our heart and it feels good, we could definitely create experiences for other people, and they can create experiences for themselves in life that make a whole lot more sense.
That exponential conversation is so crucial here when we have curiosity, because what we're sharing is what we've learned. Usually we're not sharing, oh, this is a thing that happened to me and let me tell everyone, and having it go very far. But when we share something that we learned, someone else says, I learned this, and this has changed, if not who I am or who I believe I am, where I'm going to look and where I'm going to listen and where I'm going to dance. That's so I love that word, exponential. I like to think of myself and call myself an exponential thinker rather than a non-linear thinker, because I never thought it was linear. Yes.
Oh, ho, ho, ho. I'm kidding. Everybody is a
experience
nonlinear
life.
thinker. Right?
That's right. That's right. And if we put walls on ourselves in any way, we might think in a linear way. We may think we are someone we're not. We may think we're married to someone who will give us that future, which we have been told by someone else to expect. And we may say, oh my goodness, who was I married to? And I think everybody in this room has had that situation. That's another story. And it really is a story. We have learned from that story. What have we learned from that story? Each of us is living that right now and connecting from that story. So what's bad and what's good? It's all part of our journey to connect. I'm talking again, and I want to hear from you. So tell me what is on the journey to connect, or what is in the space between. Where do you find the curiosity? Where do you find the awe? You can answer all of those or grab onto one of them. Harry.
Favorite topic. The emptiness between thoughts. I love that space. But I keep thinking about why I love that so much. And it's maybe because we are trained so much to be in that linear thinking pattern. We like it or not, we're all doing that. We're all doing that constantly. And maybe it's hitting the brake and being aware that you can be in that space in between where there is nothing and everything at the same time, right? Because every time I'm in this nothingness, another thought pops up, totally unexpected. And 10 out of 10 times, that's a spot on thought. You know, it's reminding me about someone, or it creates a word, or and when we look at neurodiversity, I have ADHD. Really? Yeah. No shit. And so so it keeps going, all the time. And I've trained myself to meditate and not sitting on a pillow in the morning looking at the sun And that's too linear for me. That doesn't do anything for me. I wanted to create a button that I can push in my system where everything stops, even when I'm talking right now. And it's empty. And I've tried to do that for many, many years, and now it's working. Yay. I didn't know how to do that. But when I walk the dog and I go forest bathing every day and I take off my shoes and it's freezing cold and I'm in my shorts and I love it that it's so cold and my toes are all wet and frozen and such a good feeling. I love pain and it's wow. And I'm walking there and I'm exploding in thoughts and like, no, Perry, don't do that. Go in between thoughts, please. And then I notice that I have a thought and another thought, and there's some space in between. And sometimes I have to say to myself, so mind, what is your next thought? Do that. Ask yourself that question when you're in a meditative state and say to yourself, to your own mind, what is your next thought, you little fuck? And there's nothing. It's so cool. Give it a try. There's nothing. I love that. So, yeah, the nothingness in between thoughts for me is the music of my creation in everything that I do. And I hope to inspire people to go there at least once.
I hope to inspire someone to go there who is questioned when they ask what I'm doing. And I say, I'm being. They say, well, you can't just be. That's
Yes, you can.
Yes, you can.
Yep.
yeah. And the idea that they are indignant that I can't just be, and I strive to be. What is being? It is certainly not the act of thinking. So
But Lydia, I did something was very awesome just now in the founding members meeting of the movement. I gave everyone 1 minute and I said, tell something about you as a human. I don't want to hear about what you're doing, or who you are. I want to know about you as a human. And most of them started talking about their trauma in life. And
Mm.
for me, it felt almost like, or we talk about trauma, or we talk about what we do. Apparently, those are the two comfortable things to talk about. Fascinating, right?
fascinating. Yes.
Those
Yeah.
are the easy two ones, or trauma, or what we do.
Trauma is supposedly something that's very hard for us to talk about, but there's so much support in that right now to tell our story, tell our story, tell our story. It may help someone connecting. I mean, it may help someone, but what's helping them is connecting and listening and being with one another. We can tell our story, but we tell it over and over again because we go to that place and that separates us.
I think we tell our story, but we don't want to be defined by it. And I think about that, my story. All right, I lost my youngest daughter 14 years ago. She passed of a brain aneurysm in her sleep. People know that. And I remember when I was starting my business and part of why I started my coaching was a result of, what happened after my daughter passed. But what happened was people were, oh, I know Kim, she's the one who lost her daughter. And that became how people defined who I was. I wasn't Kim anymore. I was Kathleen's mom, and Kathleen passed away. And people started, making that was who defined me as a person who was in my business. And that's not what I wanted. That's not what I wanted. It may have been the why and the catalyst in why a certain chain of events happened after it, but it wasn't what defined who I was as an individual, because I was Kim and I wanted to just be Kim. I didn't want to be, I just wanted to be. I didn't want, to be in a box or finding somebody a category. And that's the thing. We're always looking to be put in a category, always looking to be put in a box somewhere so that people know how to deal with us or how to treat us based on the box that we're in. But we're a myriad of things. We're not just one thing. And so that's why it's just like, okay, I just want to be me. And there's so many dimensions to that. And it may be that people fall in where we're connected because of just who I am as an overall individual, not being boxed or pigeonholed into one thing. So, I love what Perry says. It's all about I just want to be. That's what it is for me. I just want to be and not have to figure out, how I'm going to fit into somebody else's box.
We actually do find one another in between, but we look for the quickest connection. We look for that peer group, and that's okay. We have to start somewhere.
Right.
We have to start somewhere to connect. But once we can stop being afraid of that peer group or for that peer group and not take on everybody's fear and connect to that story by having our story be bigger or more defining, but just start to be in that space, we find one another.
It's a beautiful voice, Lydia.
We
Sounds
find
so
each
good.
other's voice.
Love that. Sorry.
Matt.
I think part of what we're saying is that in order to realize who we are, in order for us to know who we are coming from.
Can you
in
move your
order for us
mic? It's
to-
a little hard to hear
Oh,
you.
sorry.
That's all right.
Is that better?
Yes.
I'd move back and put my feet up on the thing underneath the table.
How
I
dare
was
you?
enjoying what everybody was saying. Sorry, I get too relaxed maybe. So I think part of what we're all saying is that we understand essentially who we all are. We have maybe connected to ourselves in some way that other people haven't. And yet the very belief in being able to do that is a belief that other people can do that. And realistically, wherever they are at, that is potentially what they believe of themselves. And sometimes that is very clearly aligned with who we are. And sometimes that makes that connection so much easier because they're the peer group or they're the people who align with what we think, or they're the people who can stop and press the button. Incidentally, Parry, it's not what or how the button is. You just needed to realize that it's right in front of you there and invisible. Because once you press that button, you said that you stopped, rather than looking for what that button is and how to push it. It's about understanding, looking at it from our point of view and connecting to people in the way that they connect to us, because we all, when we connect, are essentially reaching out. We're not just drawing people in. That's not necessarily connection. That's just waiting for a prey item to come along and swallowing it whole as some sort of bottom feeding thing that just waits for a morsel of fish to come down from the sea above. Sorry, I'm using an analogy about sea because I'm obsessed now with watching the octopuses behind Perry. But it's a way of reaching out, that we reach out, we connect. even if we are one of those people who can't actually reach out, we've discovered the skill, the ability, the focus that we have in our brain to be able to sit there and just wait to see what comes our way. But that's essentially the same. That's reaching out in our own way. It's just that we understand from our point of view how we do that. And some people aren't capable of that. Some people have an inability to be able to connect to other people. And I certainly had that when I was very young. A little bit like Ashwan earlier saying about developing skills to reach out to people and understand how to communicate and how to understand what other people want. It's not all about from us. It's a connection. It's human connection. It's about everybody. It's about understanding not necessarily where we've been, but where everybody's been, by understanding the gaps between our knowledge and theirs, whether that's because we've stopped thinking and just waited for those things to happen and some thought in between the thought process to come along, in the sense of what Perry was saying. But it's all about us as an individual understanding how we work, and therefore how we can work with other people if we want to. Some people are quite happy being a hermit on no mates block and living by themselves and not really talking to anybody ever. Nothing wrong with that, if that's what you want. But others of us like to travel, for example, like Lydia, you know full well that I've been traveling quite a lot recently, and just reaching out to those people to connect to people from different places where potentially I've not been before, and just understanding that those are people too, and realistically they're reaching out to me. And quite often talk about airports and the real ability for that to make the simplest of connections in terms of just smiling or sharing laughter or sharing care for other human beings. Just a smile because you've noticed somebody across the way when you're collecting your bags, or a laughter because somebody's done something silly like me throwing my coffee down the front of me when I've like tried to look up at the thing and not realize what I was doing, or a young girl who stood there looking for her mum because she's lost her in the crowd, and people realize that and start looking for the girl's mum. We all reach out in some way for human connectivity. And sometimes, like I say, not everybody does, because it doesn't suit them, because they don't, and that's fine too. But we all do, because otherwise we wouldn't be here. Like you said, Lydia, we've all connected to you in some way, and that's drawn us all together here. And that's the beauty of life. We get to experience wonderful voices and amazing stories and wonderful people. And that for me is why I like to reach out and talk to people. That's what I do.
Reaching out to explore, it's that curiosity, which is just a word, and it might mean something different to each of us. But the spirit of it is encompassed in the word curiosity for me. When we reach out, we find that button that you referred to. We may find that we are the button. That's what I believe, but it takes a while to get to that space. We find one another, we find who we are, but it takes a while to get to that space. And when we have curiosity to connect, to be connected to, we have less impatience, because there's so much to explore, so much we don't know, so much we do know, so much we believe we know. And always we're curious. At least everyone in this crowd around this table.
I think, Lydia, what we've all been talking about here, something someone said to me one time, and they said, you're so in the moment. And it made no sense to me, because when you live in the moment, you understand that is the only thing we've got right here, right now. The past is gone. We can't change it. We can stress over it, but that's wasted energy. The future hasn't happened yet. But an artist like you are, Lydia, with your music, when you're playing your music, nothing else exists, just the music. Whatever it is you're doing, when you allow yourself to get to that space in between, they used to call that the ether. It's the thing that connected everything that was nothing. That's where we can be in that moment. When we can let all the other stuff go and just be right here, present as we sit. I got goosebumps even thinking about it, because we spend so much of our lives worrying about the future, worrying about the past, worrying about everyone else, and not enjoying the beauty of being here with all you intelligent, interesting people, and just listening and learning. When you can be in the moment and do that, everything gets easier. And that's where those human connections, someone said, you just see somebody and you know them. It happens all the time. They may end up being a friend for life. They may be just somebody you said hi to in the grocery store line. It doesn't matter. But in that moment, you were both in the moment together. And that's when human connection, when both of you, nothing else exists. Or all 10 of you, or all 20 of you, or however many people are together. Tai Chi or whatever, people get together and they're experiencing that same moment the same way together. I think that's how we were meant to live, connected to each other, not intentionally trying to get to know somebody, not intentionally trying to understand or create who I want to be, but just being in the moment and happy.
Just being in the moment. You changed a word. You started to say minute, and then you moved to moment. I wonder if moment implies infinity. When we are in the moment and we are between the thoughts and we are in the ether, we are in the energy, we are in the nothing, we are in the moment. There's no time. There's no anything, right? Right, Perry?
I
And
think
yet there
it's
is
even
everything.
irrelevant time, right?
Yeah.
It's irrelevant. Yeah.
Time is something that has always been a challenge for me. It's probably one of the things that broke up my marriage. And yes, I am an artist of I sometimes don't like to be pigeonholed as a musician, even though that's how I show up in the world, because I just create. I just create and create. I create cake out of dust balls. I create visual art. I create things that have no word for them. But I think we each do that. And that thing grows. Or it gets carried away in the wind and off it goes and we never see it again. Still, that act is infinite. It has no walls. We like walls. We push up against them all our lives. We try to figure out which ones are appropriate and put up reasonable barriers for our safety. We put up things to unlock our walls. We try to push them down. We push against other people who have them. We think a lot about walls and barriers without thinking about them. They are very much our bedfellows. We have been with our parameters, our walls, all of our lives. Yet we've also been between those walls. And we have difficulty sometimes realizing that we're between those walls in that infinite space, which I'm running with. I'm saying that yes, the moment is infinite because at the moment that's the space that I'm talking about. I could not talk. I don't consider that to be my best way of communicating. But this is a podcast. It's about us talking. Nobody gets what we're talking about if we don't speak. So I'll leave it at that. The infinity of the moment, not being between the walls. I'm looking and it looks as though Kim wants to speak. I could be wrong.
Well, no, I'm just sitting here soaking in everything that we're talking about because, you know, like I said, it's so important that we, you know, consider our existence, consider the things that are going on around us. I love what Allison said, you know, she knows best, especially my show is called How Now, because it is about how we're living in the now, how we're existing in this space right now. Because like you said, not reflecting on the past and looking forward to the future, but embracing what's happening right now. And that's just, you know, it's such a beautiful space to be in. I think about you know, my own existence and, you know, how things come together. And for me, it's not about things being balanced. To me, it's about the harmony that it creates. What is my symphony? What is this the music that is me? What does that look like? And for me, you know, all of the interactions that I have with the people around me, it's this harmony that I'm creating. It's this music that I'm creating. And what does it sound like? Is it pitchy? Does it have bass in it? What does it sound like to me? You know? And for me, it's a fluid motion. And that's something that's so beautiful. And I think that, you know, all of the relationships start with us. As a minister, my relationship with God, my relationship there, what does that look like? You know, so for me, it's all about what harmony am I creating? What music am I creating? That's my life. You know, and I think that it all begins with us first. Because if I love me first and I have a relationship with myself and I've connected with me, now I'm ready, like you said, to be able to push out to others, to give out to others. It's not about what I can get or if life is happening for me or to me, it's what I'm giving. So I love that you said that, Allison, too. I definitely resonated with
I don't really live in the now.
that.
I find that impossible to do because every moment is now, and every moment going forwards, whether it exists or not, is the future. Whether we are in our next moment going to be destroyed by some vast nuclear strike that we keep getting told about, or I'm going to die from a stroke because I have type 1 diabetes, and therefore I'm most likely to die from that particular avenue this evening. Whatever that future might be, I cannot live in the now because that future exists. And that future exists for not just me, but for everybody. And in order to be the person who I am, I can't live in now because now does not affect change. The future affects change. And the only thing that matters to me is that the change that we see in the future and it's good for everybody. So I can't, as much as it sounds appealing, and I love the things that you guys are all saying about living in now, I can't. Sorry.
No, there's nothing to be sorry about. It's all about perspective and how you see things. And there's no right or wrong in that. Who am I to tell?
No, it's
Speak it.
wrong, Kim. No, it's wrong, Matt. Darling, listen to me. Sweetheart, you have to let go.
Have you rubbed your tiger balm in your eye or something? Because you were nice and placid and quiet a minute ago. What's going on, fella?
Ho, ho, ho. And we're all like, yeah, he's right. No, you're not right. You need to live in the, you have to let it go. You don't have to do anything, Matt. I'm just teasing you. But but this is sincere what I mean right
Okay.
now. Do what feels good and be who you are and whatever the now means, maybe it means something else for you than it means for us. The only thing that I do want to share with you is you're changing things anyway.
Hmm.
Maybe that's something to think about. We've spoken. I know your story a little bit. You're doing it anyway, even if you let go of it. And I'm not trying to be woo-woo here, but this is just listening to the vibe I'm having when I'm listening to you, when you're saying, I can't be in the now, which again is fine, because maybe the now means something else for you. But I do want to say this, what I just said, whatever. Perry, shut up and smell your tiger balsam again. Yes, I will.
I appreciate you, brother.
Me too. Thank you.
Perception of the moment. We keep having that perception,
You're right.
whether we try to let it go or not, it's still something that we perceive, to use another word. But as we perceive, we're being, whether we like it or not. And it's not scary, because it just is. And if our very existence is something that gathers people to us and instigates change, we're still being. And the more we exist for that presence, the more that future is just going to manifest itself. Perry.
Speaking of manifesting itself, here we go.
Hey, this is a podcast, right? We need to entertain people. No, I was all of a sudden thinking about this book that I'm reading. How awesome is this, right? It's who knows this book?
I have
And
not read it. I
it's
have heard
definitely
it
not
from
read
other
it.
people.
A Year to Live by Stephen Levine, and it's about dying. And not in the cliche way, right? So you have a year to live, go for it, dude. You know, take everything there is. This book is about all the elements, and I'm halfway the book. It's very thin, very easy to read, and I'm pausing because I just wanted to reflect on the first part of the book, and I'm now in the middle of this book, and it's saying to the audience, prepare to die. Find a nice spot in your house where you want to die. Go and sit down, lie down, and feel how it is to die there. How bold, how interesting to put that in a book, right? And to say, think about that, experience that. Is this a good spot in your house? And talking about the now and the connection with others and unjudging yourself and unjudging others, this book, I find this really worth diving into, to have a conversation with yourself about this topic.
Mm.
Think really helps as well to understand yourself, because everybody is afraid to die, of course. And it's interesting to look at that. Everybody, generally speaking, Lydia, we're not afraid to die, right? It's okay. But it's interesting to, at least it's not interesting. I find it interesting to read that and to have new thoughts trigger me. And yeah, I've never thought about embracing the pain in my back and thinking this might trigger something in my system that could kill me, and think about that and not being depressed about it, just being aware. I don't know why I'm sharing this, but I was triggered to do so in the whole conversation about connecting and knowing ourselves. And what an elegant little book this is. So beautiful.
It brings people to a state of the state we go in for meditation. And for prayer, what it is that we're going for is to be, when we have any difficulty or we don't have difficulty, to be placed in that space where we're connected to what's fundamental. And it does it in a book. And you probably have some time to read it and be between the words, because you are so dyslexic. Is this right, Perry? Does it take you, how long have you been reading this book?
I can read very easily. So the problem with this dyslexia is you don't know when you're making mistakes.
Mm.
So that's why I'm very creative, because I read something and I think this is wonderful, but maybe it's not saying that, right? This is the beauty of dyslexia. I read fast. I can read books like the question is, am I reading what's really in the book? And this is my difficulty with administration, is I can answer questions and I think I'm giving the correct answer, but sometimes I'm not, because I read something else that it's saying. But I love I have so many books here, and I'm reading always 4, 5, 6 books at the same time. And I don't have time, but I'm constantly reading. Yeah, call me weird. It's but my
Have you
dyslexia
ever
doesn't.
read?
Sorry.
Sorry, have you ever read 5 or 6 books and realized that you're reading the same book from different books because you've actually predestined what the result of the book or the topic of the book is?
Never
Because
had that. That's funny. No.
sorry,
No.
So,
I'm happy you're asking, Lydia,
yeah,
in this podcast, because a lot of people think when you have dyslexia, you don't like to read books or to write stuff. We just make mistakes. That's all. We love doing it.
some don't, because because they're still in school and they're beaten about the head and shoulders for not reading things correctly, and they don't know why, because they don't know they're not reading them correctly.
This is another problem. This is not about learning or reading. It's about the system.
Mhm.
So you have to read this way.
Yep.
And you have classes in English, and you have to understand what the hell you're reading, right? And you have to do that exactly towards that system. It has nothing, but completely nothing to do with reading and learning whatsoever.
Yes.
an
And it
interpretation.
disconnects us. It
Yeah.
doesn't connect us. It disconnects us.
And
Matt.
absolutely.
Sorry, I I'm no expert on reading. Lydia will vouch for this topic in particular. But for me, the problem with the system of reading a book is that it's expected that you will come to the technical definition of what that book is trying to explain, which is the very almost opposite of what Harry is describing, in the sense of, is he coming out with the story of that book, or is he coming out with his own? We used to have these books when we were young, where you would read the section and then it would say, do you choose option A or do you choose option B? If you choose option A, you turn to page and paragraph X, Y, and Z. And I know that books don't go on X, Y, and Z, but I like numbers as letters and fingers and stuff. So it becomes quite complex for me, because I lose track of where the pages are and stuff. But ultimately, you decide where your book went. And that for me sounded very counterintuitive as well. So I threw them books away and just decided to have it inside my head, rather than, because it just doesn't make sense to me.
I had those books. And did anybody else have those books?
Yes.
No? Okay. Yeah.
You
They
had those books, Perry, but you didn't really grasp the concept of what they were trying to explain inside. You came up with your own
Probably,
solution.
yeah. Probably I thought it was the dictionary or something. Yeah. That's why I'm so good at word bending right now, and I can create different kind of language. Probably.
Dictionaries are wonderful for anybody creative, because you can just go on tangents. You can go on journeys in the dictionary, and if you don't ever perceive that that is a dictionary, then all the better. Nobody can judge us, because we didn't read the dictionary.
You and I have a shared friend whose favorite book when he was growing up was the dictionary. And I've realized that part of what his life calling is about is because he wants to at least contribute as an author to the dictionary by putting one word into the dictionary.
There's a way to show up in the world. On that note, I don't think are getting Anshar back. There's a lot more to his partner's son, his stepson, whoever this person with which he has care and involvement, getting his work done. So that's a beautiful thing, because he is in a better space, having the ability to get this work done, instead of knowing that he has to get this work done and he doesn't feel like he can. On that note,
It sounds like me. Is he looking after me?
well, and I was saying, so I hadn't gotten there yet, that we have gone through that space, what we've been prevented to do and have pushed through anyway, how we've connected, how we have connected without realizing that we've connected, how we've connected by being in between, how we've separated from our stories, how other people have defined and not defined who we are, and how we have defined and not defined who they are. And the fact that we are all connecting all the time. So I want to close this out so that anybody else who needs to doesn't fall asleep or need to visit the bathroom or anything else that is of a human relevance, but also a system relevance, right? Because if we go to we go to the bathroom right where we are, it's not acceptable, especially on YouTube. So
Harry, don't take the tiger balm with you. Trust me.
we have spicy.
I've been there. I love pain, Matt. I love that. I put it everywhere.
I caught that.
As we close this out, what are your final thoughts on connection or not connecting, if it be? Go.
I'd like to connect to Perry on the basis of I'd like to read him the directions of the use for tiger balm, because possibly his dyslexia has helped him to not realize where he's not supposed to put that or supposed to put it. I like to reach out, and this sort of demonstrates the point a little bit. I like to reach out to people and talk to them about interesting things about them and about the world and about change. It almost sounds as though it's all about me, but it's not. It's about everybody. It's about making sure that the world is the place that we want to be in the future, in that moment, whatever moment that might be, in the present, whenever that is, tomorrow, now, 6 years time, 300 years time. It's time for change, and the only way to do that is to start by talking, start believing, and taking action to make those things happen. Connect.
I was going to say, I also think it's important for us to consider the impact of the things that we say and the interactions that we have, as opposed to just the intention. Because sometimes it may be our intention to do one thing, but the impact that it leaves on someone is far beyond what we thought. And so I think it's always important that as we connect with each other, think about the impact of your connection with that person over the intention that you made. That's it for me.
I go through life, and one of my little things that I like to say to myself is, are you part of the problem or are you part of the solution? And sometimes I want to be part of the problem because the problem is big and a lot of people have it, but no one has voiced it or no one is strong enough to get it out there. So then, yes, I want to be a part of that problem so that everyone that's having that problem can get the support and the guidance they need. But most times I want to be part of the solution. I want to be part of what makes life better for everyone. It's kind of lifting that whole boat. If each and every person just does a little more to connect with other people, to make sure that everyone knows they're loved, to make sure that everyone feels supported, little by little, we can change this entire world. And it may not be in my lifetime or any of ours, but just to have been part of that process is enough for me. It's enough to know that I helped move things in the right direction.
Harry, do you have anything to add?
I'm trying not to listen. I'm trying not to listen to myself and others and just trust that gut feeling that when I look at someone, I see something and it sparkles like crazy and I don't know what it is and I don't care what it is. And I just need to connect. And I found out that it always works. So it's almost like not about connecting. It's about just being and connecting. And it's for me sometimes connecting feels like, oh, we're in a network where we need to talk to each other, and I'm trying not to do that. I'm trying not to listen. Also, when someone is doing something and we start talking to ourselves about that person, I'm trying not to listen.
Is it working?
Do you see the octopus movement?
I meant right now in this moment, but the octopus movement is this moment.
I love it. I love to be aware of the possibility of not listening is awesome.
Not listening, deep listening, being. I sense them as all the same thing. And connecting is being any part of ourselves is being part of everyone. We don't know ourselves. At least I don't know myself. And we don't know others that we haven't connected to. But they are ourselves. It's all part of ourselves. And so I'm open. That's my connection. It will make no sense to some, but always I'm open. And I question that assumption so that I can be more open. If I'm open enough, I may just float away.
Don't do that.
I appreciate connecting with each of you, and I appreciate connecting with all of you. This has been an amazing conversation, and it's been amazing energy. So thank you. And thank you, Anshar, wherever you are.
Still,
I think that when we started this entire production, that I said something about not knowing what where this conversation was going to go. So I hope that you enjoyed that meandering, but extremely focused conversation on our connection. And I'd love to leave you with the thoughts of, where do you connect? How do you connect? What are your barriers to connection? And what's your next thought? I appreciate you. If you liked this roundtable conversation, please hit like. And if you are a fan of this channel and would like to see more so you won't miss more, please gently push the subscribe button and let your friends know that they can come every Tuesday at 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Pacific, 3 p.m. in the UK, 4 p.m. for Central European time and West African time. You can join in live for the conversation and talk to us in the chat. We'd love to have you. In the meantime, stay curious, remember your awe, stay cool. Ciao.